Hello, I'm Dave Strain, president of APS. What if I told you that a heating control strategy used in buildings for over 100 years can consume 240% more heating energy than necessary while providing no better comfort? In this video, the second case study demonstrates exactly that. The traditional method of setting hot water supply temperature was developed in the early 1900s and is still common today. But our experience has shown that there is a much more efficient way to determine how much heating a building actually needs. To illustrate the difference, we'll show you two different documented case studies. The first takes us back to 1979. We were originally called to solve comfort complaints at a high school. Not only were the comfort problems eliminated, but the board's building energy manager also calculated a 45% reduction in gas consumption. We'll show you the original control drawing we developed along with the performance graph prepared by the board staff documenting the results. The second case study examines a building heated with unit ventilators. You'll see a drawing of the heating system, the unit ventilator, a graph comparing the energy consumption of the two control methods, and another graph showing how each strategy affects room comfort. If you're involved in building operations, HVAC system design, controls programming, or energy management, these findings may challenge some long-standing assumptions about hydronic heating control. Please apply common sense. The complete case study, including control drawings, graphs, and supporting data, is available in our free training manual at apscontrols.org in Section 8. This is the actual control circuit that was installed in a high school in 1979. It solved the building's comfort problems while reducing measured natural gas consumption by approximately 45%. These were real operating results, not computer simulations or laboratory tests. The same control logic can easily be implemented in today's computerized building automation systems, VAS. Logic is logic. This circuit monitored 5 areas of the building that were most likely to require heat. It selected the zone on a continuous basis with the greatest demand for heating and used that signal to simulate an outdoor temperature that was warmer than the actual outdoor temperature. This simulated signal was then applied to the existing hot water reset controller. The circuit also used two signals to allow it to select the cooler room to control the temperature of the water at night to achieve night setback temperature. Before the heating water temperature was allowed to increase, the selected zone first had to satisfy its cooling requirement and shut off its cooling function. This prevented simultaneous heating and cooling while ensuring that only a true heating demand increased the hot water temperature. The hot water temperature was always limited by the original reset schedule, so the system could never exceed the maximum temperature intended by the designer. This approach kept every area in the building within the comfort range while continuously supplying the coolest heating water necessary to satisfy the building's actual demand. In the next graph, you'll see the original hot water reset schedule compared with the actual heating water temperature required by the building's most demanding zone throughout operation. The comparison clearly illustrates why this change in control logic produced such a significant energy savings. This graph is from an experiment we conducted in a high school in 1979. We were initially called to the building because occupants were experiencing significant comfort problems. At the time, the energy savings were not the primary objective. Our goal was to improve occupant comfort. During our investigation, we found that the original heating control system reset the hot water temperature supplied to the building's radiation solely based on outdoor temperature, which has been the standard from the early 1900s and remains to this day. As shown on the graph, at an outdoor temperature of 0 degrees Celsius, the original reset schedule called for a water temperature of approximately 64 degrees Celsius. This approach completely ignored the many other factors that influence a building's heating requirements. To address this problem, we developed a control strategy that allowed the coldest room in the building to mimic an outdoor temperature that fed it into the existing hot water controls. This caused the system to supply water at temperature precisely matched to the needs of the coldest occupied space, keeping all areas of the building within the desired comfort range. The graph clearly demonstrates the limitation of relying solely on outdoor temperature. At an actual outdoor temperature of 0 degrees Celsius, the coldest room generated equivalent reset signals ranging from 32.2 degrees Celsius to 54.4 degrees Celsius. This wide variation shows that no single water temperature based only on outdoor conditions could consistently satisfy the building's heating requirements. The results were dramatic. Occupant comfort complaints were eliminated, and the school reduced its natural gas consumption by 45% based on their energy manager's calculation, presented in Section 6 of APS's training manual at APS's website, apscontrols.org. This project demonstrated that controlling heating systems based on actual building requirements rather than outdoor temperature alone can significantly improve both comfort and energy efficiency. This is the unit ventilator arrangement used in the case study we're about to present. Each classroom in the school was equipped with a unit ventilator like this. The basic operating principle is that the hot water flows continuously through the heating coil, while the room thermostat controls the face and bypass damper. As the room warms, the damper is intended to bypass the heating coil, reducing the amount of air passing through it. In theory, when the damper is in full bypass, little or no heating should occur. In reality, the hotter the heating coil becomes, the more heat leaks into the bypassed airstream. Even with the damper in full bypass, unwanted heat enters the classroom. If the hot water temperature is set too high, this unwanted heating can cause the thermostat to call for cooling simply to offset the excess heat, resulting in unnecessary energy consumption. The building was heating and cooling at the same time, an unnecessary waste of energy. The conservation strategy applied the same logic presented in the first case study. Rather than resetting the hot water temperature based solely on the outdoor temperature, it adjusts the water temperature to satisfy the actual heating demand of the building based on the coolest room. This keeps the heating water no hotter than necessary, minimizes heat leakage into the bypassed air, improves comfort, and significantly reduces energy consumption. The next image compares graphs of the hot water reset strategy with the APS conservation and control logic. This graph is taken from a direct case study that we conducted and is published on our website, apscontrols.org, in the training manual beginning on page 8.126. The purpose of this graph is to compare two different methods of hot water temperature reset control. The first is conventional outdoor reset, which has remained the industry standard since the early 1900s. The second is a demand-based strategy that adjusts the hot water temperature according to the requirements of the coldest zone of the building. The symmetry between the red and the green lines represents the traditional outdoor reset curve upon which the building was originally designed. The blue line represents the demand signal from the coldest classroom, while the black line shows the exact water temperature required to satisfy that room. The graph demonstrates that when the classroom is unoccupied, the required water temperature follows the left portion of the black line. Once daytime activities begin, other heat sources become significant sources of internal heat gain. As a result, the water temperature required to maintain comfort drops substantially. At lunchtime, the students leave the classroom and their heat contribution disappears. Consequently, the required water temperature rises. When the students return, their body heat once again reduces the heat requirement, causing the water temperature to drop. This same pattern repeats on the second day. As the students enter the classroom, the required water temperature decreases. At lunchtime, it rises and then falls again during the afternoon when the students return. A particularly important observation can be made during the afternoon of the second day. If you look directly above the black line, you will see that the outdoor temperature drops sharply. Under original outdoor reset strategy, this would have caused the hot water temperature to rise dramatically following the red reset curve. Instead, the conservation control logic did the exact opposite. Because the occupied classroom required less heat due to the internal gains from the students, the system reduced the water temperature rather than increasing it. This illustrates a major weakness on relying solely on outdoor air temperature to determine heating requirements. As the graph progresses further to the right, after the students leave for the day, the outside air temperature dropped, and consequently the water temperature gradually increased. This demonstrates that outdoor temperature still influences heating demand from the conservation logic, but it only is one of several factors affecting the actual heating requirements of the building. Further to the right, the demand signal from the classroom suddenly dropped approximately to minus 102 degrees Celsius. This was caused by a teacher manually switching off the classroom heating unit. Although the thermostat continued to call for heat from the main heating plant in order to maintain room temperature, the heat could not be delivered because the unit had been turned off. As a result, the control system received an extreme demand signal from that classroom. Notice that the black line representing the required water temperature rises sharply in response. However, it stops at the level of the red line from the original outdoor reset curve. This occurs because the control system incorporates a protective feature that uses the original outdoor reset schedule as an upper limit. In other words, while the coldest room can request additional heat, it cannot demand a water temperature higher than the maximum temperature permitted by the building's original design reset curve. This feature provides both energy efficiency and system protection while still allowing control strategy to respond to the actual heating requirements of the coldest occupied space of the building. In this case study, it demonstrates that outdoor temperature is only one of many factors affecting building heating demand. By responding to the requirements of the coldest occupied zone rather than only to outdoor temperature, the control system delivers improved comfort while significantly reducing energy consumption. This graph compares two methods of controlling heating hot water temperature. The graph is taken from a case study presented in the APS training manual. The first is conventional control, which resets hot water temperature based solely on outside temperature. Second is the APS control, which resets hot water temperature according to the requirements of the coldest room in the building, coordinated with its heating device. The blue line represents the demand signal of the coldest room. This signal simulates a warmer outdoor temperature to the existing reset controls whenever less heat is actually required, allowing the hot water temperature to operate below the building's normal reset schedule. The red line shows the actual hot water temperature supplied to the building. The green line is the actual outdoor temperature. The black line represents the heating and cooling demand of the coldest room. Notice that the red hot water temperature line follows the blue demand signal until the reset controls cannot see the conservation signal. After that point, the control system can only see and respond to the actual outdoor temperature. As a result, the hot water temperature follows the conventional outdoor reset schedule. Now look at the black cooling demand line coming from the left. During the night, there's essentially only heating and no cooling demand. In the morning, heating is stopped and cooling demand rises as the staff and students occupy the classrooms and their body heat increases the building's heating input. At lunchtime, cooling demand drops because occupants leave the coolest room. It then rises again during the afternoon before falling back in the evening. This daily pattern repeats the following day. When the conservation signal is disabled and the system reverts to conventional outdoor reset control, a very different pattern appears. The coldest room begins calling for cooling even during the middle of the night, more cooling than is required when the building is occupied. This nighttime cooling is caused by the heating system supplying excessive heat because it is responding only to the outdoor temperature rather than the actual needs of the building. The automatic controls must then introduce cooling simply to remove the unnecessary heat that the heating system has just added. The building itself, not the outdoor temperature, should determine how much heat is required. The heating is based on the needs of the coolest room instead of the outdoor temperature alone. Unnecessary heating and the resulting simultaneous heating and cooling can be dramatically reduced. The original reset schedule sets as a variable upper limit on the water temperature as the outdoor temperature varies. Water hotter than the coldest room requires wastes energy and increases the possibility of damage to the valve seating, which also wastes energy. On our website, apscontrols.org, there's an article titled Fighting Climate Worry. Within that article are links to two reports that are highly significant when considering the future of today's children. The first is a BBC report indicating that more than 50% of children are regularly worried about climate change. The second is a Stanford University report projecting that the world could exhaust its economically recoverable fossil fuel resources within the lifetime of the children living today. These findings underscore the importance of taking climate change challenges seriously and pursuing practical, effective solutions. Just as importantly, we need to demonstrate that meaningful action is being taken, helping to reduce the anxiety many young people feel about the future. With respect to controls logic and energy conservation, it is important to understand that no solution can be applied everywhere. What we are really teaching is comparable to teaching someone how to play chess. We can show you the moves and strategies that have been proven successful in addressing conservation challenges in the past, but we cannot predict every situation you will encounter in the future. For that reason, I encourage you not to simply memorize the concepts presented in the APS training manual. Instead, strive to understand them deeply. A thorough understanding transforms information into a practical tool that can be applied to new and unforeseen challenges. As Albert Einstein famously observed, information is not knowledge. Information alone has limited value. Knowledge is gained when information is understood and can be applied effectively in the real world. Thank you very much for your efforts with respect to climate change, and I believe that collectively, with everybody trying, we can make a major impact on the threat to the children's future.